Welcome to New American Mythos, where old stories are kindled like firelight, and we gather round to remember the tales that shaped us. Last time, a hall was given back its voice. A people remembered what it felt like to sleep without a hand on the knife. For one night, Heorot stood bright, not because the world turned gentle, but because courage walked through its doors and would not step aside. But every grown-up story knows this. The first victory is rarely the last battle. Because evil has a habit our own American stories know well. It doesn't always come as a stranger. Sometimes it returns as consequence. Sometimes it returns as grief. Sometimes it returns because a wound was never truly healed, only quieted for a season. And that's part of why Beowulf belongs in this season, and why it still belongs in the moral memory of the English-speaking world, including our own nation. This isn't America yet in this story. There's no prairie, no log cabin, no frontier map with blank spaces and daring little lines. But the shape of the fear is familiar. Light in the middle, darkness at the edge. A community trying to build a home and the wilderness pressing in. In American myth, the wilderness is never merely scenery. It's a testing ground, a place where a man finds out what's really in him, pride or humility, violence or justice, duty or appetite. And so often, the real struggle isn't the first winter. It's the second one, the one that comes after you thought you had made it. That's the kind of night we're entering now. Tonight, the story moves from celebration into something older and colder. The cost of victory, the temptation of vengeance, and the quiet warning that triumph can carry its own poison if it isn't held with humility. We'll see a king who has experienced too much of grief, offering counsel like a lantern. We'll see a hero step toward deep water, not because he loves danger, but because responsibility has found him. And underneath it all, the poet is asking us a question that reaches far beyond Denmark, far beyond England, and into every people that has ever tried to become a nation, a neighborhood, or even a household. When the darkness comes back, what kind of people will you be? So, settle in close, let the fire hold, and as you listen, keep one thought quietly in your pocket. We'll come back to it at the end. It is this. Sometimes the greatest threat to a hall isn't the monster outside the door, but what grows inside the heart after the singing starts again. Beowulf, Part 2. Section 1. The New Threat. The Danes had rejoiced. For the first time in 12 long winters, Heorot had been filled not with screams, but with song. The great hall had stood against the darkness, and a foreign hero had given them back their pride. For one night, the Danes slept without fear. For one night, all the doors stayed open, and no one kept a weapon by the bed. But darkness has a long memory, and some evils only sleep until they are stirred. Grendel had been a scourge, yes, but he had not come from nowhere. He was the child of something older, deeper, a creature born not just of malice, but of exile. And exile remembers. Far beneath the earth, below the moors and the stone-rooted hills, there lies a still, black lake. A mirror, they called it, where no animal drinks and no man dares to fish. That water is dark all of its own, and at the bottom of that mirror is a hall of cold stone and bone, and there she waited. Grendel's mother. When her son fell, when his torn arm was nailed to the hall's wall like a war prize, she felt it. Not through sight nor sound, but through blood, through pain that rippled down into the depths, the kind a mother knows. She rose from her place, not in rage alone, but in grief. She had no words of vengeance, only instinct, only fury. No warband followed her, no banner flew. She came alone, but not without wrath. Let's take a quick break here to point out something important. There's a line there in the story that feels almost like a law of the fallen world. Darkness has a long memory. Goodness, when it's fresh, often feels fragile. It feels like something you have to protect with both hands. But evil can wait. It can linger in the reeds. It can count the nights. And notice what arrives this time. Not a prowling hunger that hates laughter, but grief turned into violence. The poem makes space for something uncomfortable. The new terror is not random. This time it is personal. It is a wound that comes back with claws. That certainly doesn't excuse it, but it does teach us how temptations often work. Pain demands payment. Sorrow demands someone else carry it. And when grief becomes a weapon, it doesn't only kill bodies, it tries to poison the meaning of the hall itself. It tries to teach the living that joy is always a foolish thing. But this is why the story matters. It reminds us that courage isn't only for the first crisis. Real courage is what you do when the nightmare returns. And you have to choose, again, whether your community will be ruled by fear. All right, back to the king, and back to the torn open morning. That night, as the Danes slept again, thinking the nightmare ended, she entered the hall like fog and struck without warning. She killed one, not at random. Asherah, Hrothgar's most trusted thane, his shield brother, his oldest friend. She took his body with her, vanishing into the night, leaving only ruin in her wake. The benches were overturned, blood soaked the stone again. The scent of vengeance lingered in the air. Heorot, once again, fell silent. And in the morning, hope cracked like ice underfoot. The warriors gathered slowly as if afraid of what they already knew. No songs rose, only the sound of feet on stone and the soft weeping of men who had thought the grief behind them. When Hrothgar came into the hall and saw the blood, the shattered benches, and the place where Asherah had lain, he stopped. His shoulders sank, not as a king, but as a man. For a moment he said nothing, no command, no cry. Then he turned his face away. "I thought it was over," he said, not to anyone, not even to himself, just to the air. "I thought we were safe." Section 2. Hrothgar's Grief. Hrothgar stood in the center of the hall. The blood was still wet. The light from the torches flickered low. He did not weep. He simply looked at the space where Asherah had been, and where he was no longer. Then he spoke. "You all knew him. You all knew what he was to me. Asherah, my soul's companion, my truest man in war and peace, he gave his life to hold this kingdom with me." He looked not at Beowulf, but at the wall, as if something there might give him back what was taken. "We thought it done, but evil is not undone by one night's triumph. Her grief is older than ours, and her wrath has not ended." He turned now, slowly, toward Beowulf. "She lives beneath the mere," he said, "a place fouler than words. The water burns, no animal drinks there, the sky never touches it. They say serpents stir in its depths, and night birds cry above it. I have never seen it myself, but I have feared it all my life." He faltered, not in command, but in memory. "Go there if you choose, but do not think you must. You have already given us peace, or as close to peace as men are ever allowed." The hall was silent. Beowulf rose. "Grief touches us all," he said, "but it does not unmake us. You trusted me once. Trust me again." He picked up his mail shirt from where it had rested the night before. The blood of the last battle had dried on its rings. She came for vengeance. I will go for justice." Let's take a step back here. That sentence draws a line through the middle of the episode. She came for vengeance. I will go for justice. Vengeance says, I will make you feel what I feel. Justice says, I will stop what you are doing, even if it costs me. And the story quietly insists that those two are not the same thing. They can look similar from a distance. Both have steel, both spill blood, both walk in danger, but they spring from different wells. Vengeance is fed by the past. It cannot imagine an end. Justice looks towards an end. The restoration of the hall, the protection of the helpless, the breaking of the cycle. Beowulf doesn't speak like a man thirsting for a fight. He speaks like a man accepting a burden. And there's a strange mercy in that. Not because the path is gentle, it is not, but because it means evil does not get to set the terms. It does not get to decide what kind of men we become. Now, let us follow them to the mere. Let us watch the sky darken. And when Beowulf dives, let us hold our breath with him. There was no boast in his voice, no fire, only iron. I will go to the mere. I will find her, and I will not return unless she is ended, or I am. Section 3. The Journey to the Mere. At first light they prepared. Before they set out, Hrothgar gathered the warriors in a circle outside Heorot. The sun had not yet risen. The torches flickered in the wind. "This is no ordinary errand," he said. "You go to a place cursed since before memory. No man among us has ever returned from it." He placed a hand on Beowulf's shoulder. "You owe me nothing, and yet you go. May the Lord who made the deep guide your steps within it." Beowulf, clad in mail, walked at the head of the company. His helmet caught the morning sun. The blade at his side, Hrunting, was a gift from Unferth, silent now, perhaps ashamed, but offering what aid he could. They followed the trail of Ashura's blood. It led them out of the halls and fields, away from warmth and song, into the raw country of the moors. The air grew colder, the sky dimmed. They passed wild hills where nothing grew but stone, trees twisted into dead shapes. The land seemed to lean away from them, as if warning them back. At last they came to the mere. It lay still and black, ringed by jagged rock and overhanging trees. Steam curled off the surface like breath. The water bubbled, though no wind stirred it. Even beasts avoided it. They found Ashura's head there, set on a rock like a warning. The men recoiled. No beast had done this. This was meant to be seen, meant to wound. Beowulf stepped forward. He looked into the water. The depths did not reflect his face. Only darkness stared back. "Wait here," he said to his men. He turned to Hrothgar one last time. "If I do not return, let it be known that I came here freely, that I sought not glory, but justice." Then he drew Hrunting from its sheath. Its iron edge gleamed cold in the light. Without another word, he dove. Section 4. The Battle Beneath the Earth. The water closed over him. It was cold as iron, thick as blood. Beowulf sank fast, the weight of his armor dragging him down like an anchor. Around him, the light vanished. He swam downward, not by sight, but by instinct. His limbs pushed through the brackish depths, through waters thick with silt and memory. Weeds wrapped around his ankles. Things moved in the dark, things that had never seen the sun. The water thickened around him. Pale shapes drifted past, bones perhaps, or dreams. He passed the husks of old weapons rusted by time, their hilts clutched in skeletal hands. The current pulled sideways, unnatural. He saw flashes of light, or was it memory? Faces he could not name, warriors he had never met. Then the ground opened beneath him. The water grew warmer, and he felt he was entering not just a place, but a judgment. All around him he felt the press of age. This was a place older than memory, older than kings, a place untouched by the mercy of God. Then something struck him. A shadow surged from below, claws like hooks, teeth like stone. Grendel's mother. She seized him and dragged him downward faster than any current. Her grip was iron. Her grief made her strong. They plunged into her hall beneath the earth, a cavern lit by an eerie glow. The water thinned. He found his footing on a slick stone floor. She struck first. Beowulf raised Hrunting, the sword Unferth had given him. He swung with all his might. The blade hit her flesh and failed. It glanced off, useless as wood. She laughed. She lunged again, claws raking across his mail. He stumbled back. She struck again and again, driving him against the stone. His breath left him. His sword clattered to the ground. She reached for his throat. He caught her wrist, forced her back. They grappled, strength against strength. No words, no shouts, only the sound of flesh, of armor scraping, of ancient hate rising like heat from the earth. Around them, the cavern stretched wide, held up by columns carved in a forgotten tongue. Bones were stacked like offerings. Shields from ancient wars hung from the walls, blackened and split. And at the far end, atop a stone dais, hung a sword. Hanging high on the wall behind her throne, half hidden in shadow, was a long blade, older than memory, forged by giants for hands no longer walking the world. Its hilt was inlaid with ancient runes. Its blade was longer than a man is tall. She had kept it there, not as a weapon she used, but as a trophy, or a warning, or a curse. Perhaps even she feared it. Perhaps she could not destroy it. Perhaps she could not bear to let it go. Beowulf lunged away from Grendel's mother. He dashed towards the blade and tore it free. It sang in his grip. With all the strength left in him, he raised it and struck. The blade carved through her neck, bones split. The scream died in her throat. She fell, and the water stilled. Then the light changed. The hall grew brighter, as if some curse had been broken. Beowulf stood in the silence. His breath slowed. Blood dripped from the giant's blade. He turned. In the far shadows of the cavern lay another body, Grendel's, twisted, torn, and still. He stepped forward, and with one swing he cut off that monster's head as well, not out of vengeance, out of finality. Then he took the head and the hilt of the ancient sword, only the hilt, for the blade had melted in the blood of that cursed creature, and he swam upward, back through the dark, back toward the world of men. Section 5. The Return and Hrothgar's Reflection. The water broke. Beowulf rose from the mere like something reborn, his armor torn, his limbs heavy, but his eyes unclouded. He dragged himself ashore. In one hand he carried the hilt of a sword too great for any man, in the other the severed head of Grendel, twice the size of a man's own. The Geats rushed to him. The Danes gathered close, but did not speak. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Together they returned to Heorot. When they arrived, Beowulf set the head down in the center of the hall. Blood pooled slowly around it. Warriors stared, wide-eyed. Some backed away. Some crossed themselves. It had taken 12 years to rid the hall of this monster, and now his head lay at their feet. Then Hrothgar rose. He looked at Beowulf, not with pride, but with something deeper, with grief, with wisdom, with age. And he said, "You have done what no one else could do. You have rid us of a shadow that has haunted generations, but even now, even here, I ask you to listen. Glory is bright, but it fades. Strength is loud, but it passes. Wealth fills halls, but time empties them. A high seat becomes the funeral bed. The gold becomes dust. I have ruled long. I have seen cities built and burned. I have buried my sons. I have watched loyal men die in darkness. I have held power in both hands, and still I could not hold back death. Beware pride. It walks beside triumph, whispering lies. It tells you you are beyond harm, that you do not need grace, but no man escapes the wheel of fate." Let's pause there again. If you listen closely, this is the true king speech of the whole arc, because Hrothgar doesn't warn Beowulf about another monster first. He warns him about the monster that travels inside of the applause. Beware pride, it walks beside triumph, whispering lies. That's an image worth keeping. Pride is a companion, quiet, flattering, and patient, not roaring like Grendel, whispering, telling you that you are the source of your own salvation, that you don't need grace, that you don't need counsel, that you don't need God. And Hrothgar has earned the right to say this. He has buried his sons. He's seen halls rise and fall. He knows the strange truth. You can defeat a terror outside you and still lose yourself inside. So, the poet gives us this moment of wisdom at the top of the mountain, right when it would be easiest to build an idol out of the hero. He says, don't do it. Let the deed be honored, yes, but let the heart remain humble. Let strength become service, not self-worship. Because the time is coming for every man, even kings, even heroes. Let us return now to the hall for the last time in this story. Let us hear the gifts, hear the farewell, and feel the shadow that the poet lets fall across the sea road. Be not proud, though the world lifts your name. Be grateful, be just, be ready. Use your strength to serve while it lasts. Give generously, rule wisely, Honor your oaths, for all men, even kings, must stand before God in the end." The hall was silent. Beowulf bowed his head, not because he was humbled. He had not boasted, but because he understood. Section 6. Beowulf's Departure. The days that followed were full of feasting, gifts, and songs. Wealhtheow placed a torque around Beowulf's neck, a golden ring crafted in the days of her ancestors. "Take this," she said, "as a token that we will never forget." The king's men offered him an heirloom cup and a banner stitched with the emblem of the Danes, meant to be raised only in peace. Even Unferth, silent and humbled, came forward. "You were more than I expected," he said, "and far more than we deserved." Hrothgar lavished treasure upon Beowulf, gold rings, fine mail, a sword inlaid with runes, and a banner woven in red and gold. He honored the Geats as if they were his own sons. And yet, beneath the celebration, there was a hush, as if all present knew that this moment would never happen again. At last Beowulf prepared to return. He stood before Hrothgar, and the old king embraced him. "Your name will live here," he said. "Long after these stones fall, they will speak of what you did. Go now, strong in honor, and may your days be long." Beowulf nodded, but the old man's eyes filled with tears. "I have no sons to inherit my strength," Hrothgar said. "If fate had shaped the world differently, I would have called you my heir." Then he held out a small book, its leather cover worn, its pages inscribed by monks. "It speaks of the Maker," he said, "of what comes after. I cannot follow you home, but take this, one king to another." Beowulf bowed deeply. Then he and his men set sail. The sea was calm, the waves rolled beneath their ship, the treasure glittered in the sun, the wind filled their sails, and the coast of Denmark fell behind them. But the poet knows, even the strongest return only for a time. Kingdoms rise and kings fall. Glory fades like foam on the sea, and all men must one day face the final shore, not of water, but of judgment. Yet while he lived, Beowulf chose well. He gave strength, not cruelty. He bore treasure, not tyranny. He walked not alone, but with honor. And though the coast of Denmark fell away behind them, their names remained. And so Beowulf sailed home, crowned in honor, his name carried on the winds. But this was not the end of his tale. There was more glory, more sorrow, a final test waiting in the long years to come. When Beowulf returned to Geatland, the Geats welcomed him with joy. In time, their old king died without an heir, and the people turned to Beowulf, not only for his strength, but for his steadiness. And so he ruled wisely and well for 50 winters. No enemy dared test the Geats while Beowulf sat on the throne. His justice was fair, his oaths true. Peace settled over the land like calm after a storm. But the world turns. One day, deep beneath the earth, in a barrow forgotten by men, a thief broke a boundary. He crept into a dragon's hoard, a pile of gold and jewels, cursed by age and guarded for centuries by that fire drake. The thief took a single cup, a small thing, but the dragon awoke, and fire returned to the world. Villages burned, smoke filled the skies. The Geats, so long at peace, trembled beneath the shadow of the flame. Beowulf was old now. His hair was silver, his body scarred, but his spirit had not dimmed. He chose to face the dragon alone, not because he was proud, but because it had always been his way. He knew this battle would be his last. He told no lies about that. He prepared his tomb, and marched to the barrow. But even heroes falter. His sword shattered, his shield blackened, and the fire pressed close. Then a single warrior, Wiglaf, a kinsman, stood by him when all others fled, and together they struck down the beast, but not before it bit deep. Beowulf's wound burned with the dragon's venom. He knew he would not see another day. He spoke to Wiglaf then, not of grief, but of gratitude. He saw the hoard of gold with his own eyes and gave thanks that it would pass to his people. He gave his rings, his final commands, and his name. Then the king who had once crossed the sea to kill a monster lay still beneath the sky. The Geats built a great barrow by the shore, filled it with treasure, and sealed his ashes inside. They circled the mound on horseback and sang not just of battles, but of his kindness, his fairness, his deep heart. They said, of all the kings in the world, he was the most worthy of praise, because he loved his people, because he never turned from what was right. And so ends the story of Beowulf. A hall can be restored, a monster can be ended, treasure can change hands, and songs can rise again. And still, this story leaves us with a quieter truth. Even the brightest victories live under the shadow of time. That's not cynicism, it's wisdom. The poet won't let us confuse strength with permanence or glory with salvation. He gives us courage, and then he gives us humility. Because the world doesn't only test us with fear. Sometimes it tests us with relief, with applause, with the warm, dangerous suggestion that we are safe now, safe because of what we have done. And that's where Beowulf becomes more than an old northern tale. It becomes a mirror. Every people that tries to build a home learns this sooner or later. The wilderness is not only a place on a map, it's also a force that presses on the soul, tempting us toward vengeance, toward pride, toward forgetting the God who grants all gifts. You can push the darkness back for a night and still lose the plot in daylight. That's part of why these echoes of Albion matter for New American mythos. America didn't appear out of thin air. We inherited a language, a library, a set of instincts about courage and duty and community. We inherited the idea that a home is worth defending, that evil is real, that promises matter, that a man's strength is meant to serve the weak. And we inherited the old warning that pride can rock the very victory it celebrates. So, when we listen to Beowulf, we're not only visiting Denmark, we're listening to an ancestor story of the English-speaking imagination, one that helped shape the kinds of tales we still tell on this side of the ocean. Frontier stories, homestead stories, stories where light holds in the middle and the dark tree line still watches. And if we're wise, we'll take the poet's counsel with us. Honor courage, yes, but don't worship it. Love the hall, but don't trust it to last forever. Give thanks for deliverance, but don't mistake deliverance for salvation. Thank you for listening to New American Mythos. If this story has stirred something in you, wonder or courage or a steadier kind of hope, we hope you will share it with someone you love. And if you're willing, we would love it if you would leave a review where you listen. It helps more listeners find their way to the firelight. For updates between episodes, you can join the mailing list, and if you'd like to help sustain this work, you can support the show on Patreon. Links for both of those are in the show notes below. Until next time, keep the fire lit, keep the old stories near, walk in peace.